So if you borrow $6,000 at 8% for 5 years, now I should have stated simple interest here because we haven't talked about compound interest yet, so you don't know how to calculate that. But if this is simple interest, the amount of interest is going to be found by doing what? Perfect. Perfect. It's principal times rate times time. So the principal is the 6,000. The rate is 8%, which is as a decimal is 0.08. The rate is the decimal form of our percent. And our time is in years, and it's 5 years. So that ends up being, if I multiply it out, is it $2,400 in interest? So what that means is what we have to pay back, the maturity value is 6,000 plus 2,400, which is $8,400. Now, as we mentioned yesterday, banks don't like to do simple interest for longer than 3 to 6 months. I mean, 6 months maximum, usually 3 months, and they like to break it down and do compound interest. So what would most likely be the situation here is that you would borrow the $6,000 at 8% compounded quarterly for 5 years. So two things are going to happen here. One is the amount of interest is going to be, the time is going to be adjusted when we calculate our amount of interest. We're not going to figure it for the full 5 years. We're going to figure it by the quarter. So in quarter 1, the amount of interest is going to be the 6,000 times 0.08 times 1/4 of a year, 1/4 of a year. Bless you. What does that come out to be, $120? Sounds right to me. We're going to go with that. So that means your ending balance at the end of the year is the 6,000 plus the 120, so that's $6,120. So when you start out the second quarter, you're going to be starting it not with 6,000, but 6,120 times 0.02 times 1/4. If we multiply that out, what do we get for interest? What is that? $122.40. Does that sound right? Yeah? Okay, thank you. So now we're going to add that to the 6,120. So it's $6,242.40 is our balance. And we'd start out the third quarter with that amount. Well, how many times do we have to do this to get through 5 years? 20 times. I don't feel like doing this 20 times. I'm not going to do it 20 times. So let's look at what's going on here. We've also, in the last couple of days, talked about those percent increase problems. And that's basically what's going on here is there is a percent increase. The percent, however, is not 8%. The percent increase is not 8% because it's only going for a quarter at a time. When you multiply that out, 0.08 times 1/4, we get 0.02. What that means is we are increasing by 2% per quarter, which makes sense. If it's 8% for a whole year, 8 divided by 4 or 8 times 1/4 is going to be 2% for a quarter. And if we look at what we did for those percent increases, we had a beginning balance, add the interest, getting ending balance. You have the percents on one side, the dollars on the other. The interest is 2%. That's the 8% divided by 4 because it's for quarters. The beginning balance is 100%. Our beginning dollar amount we'll look at over here in just a second. Our ending balance then is 100 plus 2, or 102% of what we started that period with, what we started the quarter with. So what that means is we could take that beginning balance and we could just multiply 102% as a rate as 1.02. And that'll give us the ending balance for each quarter. So if I did that up here with the $6,000, 6,000 times 1.02 gives me the 6,120, which is what I had for my ending balance at the end of the first quarter. I take the 6,120 times 1.02, I get $6,242.40, which was my ending balance at the end of the second quarter. How many times am I going to have to multiply by 1.02? 20, 4 times a year for 5 years, so 20 times again. Well, in math, do we have a shortcut for multiplying by the same thing over and over again? Yeah, powers, exactly. So what we can do is just 6,000 times 1.02 the power of 20. 8915.68. Now, if you compare that, that's the compound interest. If it's compounded quarterly. If it was simple interest, remember that balance came out to $8,400. So there's over $500 difference here over the 5-year period because we compounded. That compound interest is a very, very powerful thing. The formula for compound interest. Let's say we're going to invest $5,000 at 6% compounded monthly for 3 years. The formula for this, the formula for compound interest, is we don't just find the interest, we find the maturity value. That ending balance is what we're finding. It is going to be equal to our principal times 1 plus, now your textbook just puts the rate in here. By rate, they're assuming rate per period. So we're going to do this. R divided by N. N is the number of periods in a year. To the power of N times T, where T, of course, is the number of years, just like in the simple interest. So in this formula, of course, P, the principal, is 5,000. 1 plus. What's our rate? $6 is going to become what as a rate? 0.06. Good. Divided by N. This is compounded monthly. So how many times a year is it going to be compounded? How many months are in a year? 12. So 12 times a year. To the power of, N is still 12. How many years? 3. So now what I'm going to do here is this first. 12 times 3 is 36. That's going to be the power of 36. So I'm going to put this in my calculator. 5,000 times, open parentheses, 1 plus 0.06 divided by 12, close my parentheses, power of 36. There it is, $5,983.40. What if I didn't want the ending balance? What if I really wanted the interest? You got it. We would just subtract that ending balance of $59.83.40 minus the $5,000, $983.40. N stands for the number of periods in a year. So if it's compounded monthly, N is 12. If it's compounded quarterly, N is 4. Semi-annually, which means twice a year, so N would be 2. So let's look at $7,000 at 3% compounded quarterly for 2 years. You guys tell me how to set this up. 7,000 times, parentheses, 1 plus 0.03 is my rate, divided by how many periods in a year? 4. Very good. Because it's quarterly now instead of monthly. Close my parentheses to the power of 4 times 2. Perfect. So this is, I'm going to start by doing the 4 times 2 is 8. So that's going to be a power of 8. So 7,000 times, parentheses, 1 plus 0.03 divided by 4, close parentheses, power of 8. So 7, 431, 19. So again, if you wanted to find the amount of interest, that would be the ending balance. If you wanted to find the amount of interest, you'd have to subtract that beginning balance. You get $431.19 in interest. So you have to be careful that you read the question carefully, know what it's asking. Is it asking for the ending balance, the maturity value, or is it asking for the amount of interest? If it's asking for the maturity value, you can just stop there. Now, how many of you in here are under 23 years old? Most of you? Okay. He is too. He's just not awake enough to raise his hand. I'd say go ahead and kick him under the table, but he looks like he'd really use the rest. Anyway, so let's say you get out of school. Let's use 22 because 22 seems to work out a little bit easier. You're 22 years old. If you're younger than that, it's even better. What's retirement age now? Does anybody know? Never? About 12 minutes before you die? Well, right now, Social Security has announced that I believe there's a cutoff. You have to like 50 if you're below 58 years old or something like that, which we all are. You can't draw Social Security until you're 67. In fact, there's a date in there, and I don't remember what date it is. If you're for every year after a certain year that you were born, it gets pushed back a month up to like 69. So some of you may not be able to draw Social Security until 69 years of age. I'm not sure if you want to. So anyway, let's look at the possibilities, assuming that hopefully you do live to 67. I'm 44, and if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I would never thought I'd live to be 44. So, how long is that? From 22 to 67. That's 45 years. Now, right now, you're in college, so you're probably living kind of cheaply, either maybe living with your parents or living with a roommate, so you're sharing bills, driving an older car. A lot of people get done with school They get that first good job. They're making a little bit more money. One of the first things they usually do is find a nicer car and then probably move into a nicer place. But what if you didn't do that? What if you stayed living like you are now, efficiently, keeping your roommate, keeping that old car for another year or two? How much money do you think you could save up in a year? A lot? Throw me a number. 2 grand? Hey, 2 grand would work. You could probably do more than that. 10? Okay. Well, let's do, I agree with you. If you really tried, you maybe could do 10 grand. Let's throw 5 grand out. The reason I throw 5 grand out there is up until 2 years ago, 5,000 was the limit. The IRS had a limit on what you could put into your individual retirement accounts every year. I believe they raised it to 5,500 last year. It's just 5 grand's a little bit easier to work with for an IRA. Well, Roth or IRA, it's 55 now. Yes. For Roth IRAs and regular IRAs are combined. You can only put that 5,500 total between the two of them. But then, yep. And then you can do more into like TSAs, tax shelters, but those have to come directly out of your check, every paycheck. And that's up to a certain percentage of it's like 20% of your income or something like that. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's non-taxed goes into the TSA. Yep. No. So anyway, let's say you do that. You live cheaply for a year. You save up that $5,000. If you invest it, starting at like 22 until age 67, so for 45 years, what type of interest rate do you think you can get? Now, right now, if you go to the bank, you're getting like 0.2%. So we're going to do a lot better than that. We're talking about going to an investment planner and having him invest you in bonds and mutual funds and stocks and stuff. Okay. Sure. And 1.4 is not bad on a CD. But if you go to a professional investor, right now, even now playing the market, I had some clear like 18 or 19% last year. The average annual gain on a 40-year investment over any 40-year period from now back to like 150 years ago when the stock market started is about between 12 and 13%. Even in 40-year periods that included the Great Depression and the big drop in 2008, I mean, still, if you have those big drops, usually within the next couple of years, you have big gains. Like in 1991, there was a big dip, a small little recession. The market lost like 12%. 3 years later, it gained 40%. So, I mean, usually you still average out those gains. So should we be conservative and say 10%? Yeah, don't care. So we're going to make this easy on ourselves. We're going to do 10% compounded annually. So once a year, exactly. So when we write this out now, it's 5,000 times 1 plus, what's 10%? 0.1 or 0.10 divided by, annually is going to be 1, to the power of 1 times 45 years. So that's just going to be 45. You're correct. So when we calculate this out, 5,000 times 1 plus 0.1 divided by 1 to the power of 45. Anybody want to take a guess? 364 or 452? $364,452 approximately. That one $5,000 investment at 22 years of age comes out to about $350,000 in your retirement at 67. Think about that. You do that 3 years in a row, you're a millionaire in your retirement. If you live to retirement, yeah, that's a bleak way of thinking about it, but yes. Now, That's starting at age, that was 22. Let's say you decide, you know what, I worked hard to get through school. I want to play for a few years. So I'm going to wait until I'm 32. I'm going to play for 10 years, and at 32, I'm going to worry about all this stuff. So at 32, you put away $5,000. Assuming you can still get the 10%, now it's only to the power of 35. How much do you think you're going to have? Any guesses? It's a huge drop, 140,512. It drops more than half, almost down to a third of it, just by waiting that 10 years. Now, let's say you really screw up. I'm 44, but let's say you wait till you're like 42. You put away that same $5,000, assuming you can still get 10%. At that point, you might not have enough time left to get that 10%. But it's going to be there for 25 years. This is going to make me cry. 54,174. You look at this, you can see if you did it at 22, you get 364,000. You wait till you're 42, it only turns into 54,000. 1/7 of what you would get if you did it 22. No, that's just 5,000 once. Yeah. If you do it once, though, and it comes out to 350,000. 4% of $180 a month. Are you putting away $180 a month, or are you going to put away 4% of 180? Okay. 4% of 180 is only like $7. It's a start. $401k plan, yeah. I'm just doing this because it's way quicker, bless you, than me trying to do it out. Let's start at 21. And we're going to take this up to age 67. 102 might be a little old. I don't know about you guys, but I don't plan on making it to 102. So you said 5,000 might be a little tight. How much do you think you could put away every year? 1,000? So you put away $1,000. So let's say you put away that $1,000 a year starting at 21. You go to 67. We're going to go 12% return here. That $1,000 a month, or $1,000 a year, I should say, starting at 21, going to 67. Anybody want to guess? You would be a millionaire in your retirement. 1.7 million. How many of you think you could probably live off 107 million in retirement? Or 1.7 million, 107, 1.7 million. Yeah. Well, then hopefully you'd have an investment planner that would help you set it up so you couldn't get to all the money at once to keep you from doing that. Now, well, in 45 years, you look at your average rate of inflation at 2%. In 45 years, your cost of living will just over double. So if you can live off 40,000 now, it'll take about 80,000 a year. No, but you also have to consider you probably won't have a home mortgage anymore at that age. stuff like that. You're not driving to work every day. Well, if you have a house, you have property tax. And the biggest thing that you have to take into account that you have an expense that you won't have now, most likely have higher medical costs at that age. So it usually balances out. Now let's play with this a little bit. I'm going to take this up to $3,000 a year. You may think $3,000 a year is hard. That's $250 a month. That's not horrible. Think about it though. I know a lot of people go out and buy that $50,000 truck where you have like a $600 a month payment. You can get a pretty nice car, a pretty nice truck at $350 a month. That $250 a month is your difference in payment. Now let's talk about, we mentioned that whole scenario of I'm young, I want to play with my money. So let's say this person here says, you know what, I'm going to play with my money until I'm 29. At 29, I will start thinking about retirement. Now over here, the $3,000 a month, they had $5 million at retirement. This person down to $2 million. Now let's look at another possibility. This person said, I'm going to play, and at 29, I'll start worrying about it. This person says, you know what? I'm going to save when I'm young, and at 29, I'm going to stop. So starting at 29, I'm not going to save anymore. Now I'm going to start playing with my money. I'm going to take that extra $3,000 a year, and I'm going to play with it. What would you rather have, by the way, $3,000 a year for 8 or 9 years, and then have to start saving for retirement? Or would you rather have, save for 8 or 9 years and then have that extra $3,000 a year for the next 35 years, 40 years? Well, here, this person who saved for, what is that? It's 8 years and then never had to save another penny, comes out $1 million ahead. That's significant. Let's go back. Let's change this a little bit. Let's back this up a year. Oops. Maybe grandpa died and left you a big settlement or something, huh? Let's back it up a year. This person only saves from 21 to 27. So they're only saving for 7 years. So this one saves for 7 years and then doesn't save another penny literally for 40 years. This person plays for 7 years and then has to save for 40 years. Still not even really close. 2.3 to 2.8 million. Still a $500,000 ahead. That's the power of saving when you're young. I know I'm preaching a little bit right now, and I apologize for that, but it's a point that I feel, since we're doing interest calculations, it's one I feel I almost have to show to you to be in clear conscience here. I'm not an investment expert, so I'm not going to tell you where to put your money, but if it's something you can do, something you're thinking about, talk to an investment person. Those you in Derry heard, Dr. Jeff usually has somebody come in, an investment planner in the area, come in at some point and talk to you guys. It's a big deal to start when you're young. Any questions? Anybody want to see this done with different numbers? Your head hurts? Well, like I said, I'm 44, so imagine how I feel. I wouldn't tell you to do that, to take out loans, but I do know people that have taken out loans when they were young and used it to put into retirement investments and then just paid those loans off. Because for them, they know themselves enough to know that it's hard for them to put away extra money and save it. But it's easy to make those payments back on a loan because you have to. Yeah, if you're under contract. So for them, it was easier. Because I know people that have saved up money for down payments on a car or a house. And I have given my friends that advice of, you saved up $8,000 to make a down payment on a car. How about you make the minimum down payment on the car and put the rest away for retirement? Because you're going to make your car payment. It might make your car payment an extra $50 a month. But now you've got that put away for retirement. Put it away without increasing your payment. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, I had to throw that out there just to feel like I've done my job. But if you have any more questions about it, you can ask me or talk to an investment planner. I'm not going to try to tell you where to invest your money in by any means, but talk to an investment planner. There's a lot of options out there. Investment planners love it when younger people come in because they know they can do a lot of good for you. Well, they're going to make a commission off you every year, but still, that's one of the things you ask. That's one of the things you always ask about is where do you make your money? I mean, obviously, the bigger name investment planner, the higher their commissions are, but also the more resources they have and the more return they're going to get too. I mean, you've got like Charles Schwab and Edward Jones and all those. Do you see them advertised on national television? If they're spending that money on advertising, obviously they're probably charging higher fees, but they also have more resources. So they may not have a significantly higher rate of return, but chances are they're more stable because they have more resources to balance things out. Yeah. Yeah, that's something this kind of a fad starting now. Yeah. Let's take a look at payments. We talked about if you take out a loan, you make payments. Payments can go two ways. When we're talking about an investment, you can be like paying in. If you're paying into an investment like a retirement, any of you that have like a 401k or tax shelter of any sort where it's coming out of your check every month, this is one way to figure that out. Or you can have Roth and IRA deductions every month. If you want to figure out what your balance is going to be, trying to find that future balance. The formula is kind of ugly. It is your payment. It's similar to it. That one is if you're drawing out or paying down a loan. This is if you're paying into an investment. So the difference is you're starting out here with zero and you're building up to a higher balance. The other formula is if you're starting out at a higher balance and you're drawing it down to zero. It starts out looking exactly like a compound interest formula. But then it adds a few things like that. So you were saying you're paying into a tax shelter or Roth, a TSA. Well, being military is probably 403B or 408, whatever. Any idea how much is coming out, or just want to throw a number out there? You don't have to share your number if you don't want to. So you're probably looking at like $15 a month total. Okay, so let's say you're throwing in $15 a month per month. Let's say it's going to sit in there for 40 years. Let's be conservative. Let's say you're making 8% on it. Now notice I didn't say 8% compounded whatever. If you're paying in each month, it's going to be compounded each month. So what we're going to do here, the amount that you're going to have, you've got your $15 times 3 parentheses, 1 plus your rate of 8% is 0.08, divided by 12, because it's 12 months in a year, to the power of 12 times 40 for 40 years, minus 1, divided by, R is going to be 0.08, divided by 12, and close your parentheses twice. So 15 times 1, 2, 3, 1 plus 0.08 divided by 12, close parentheses, to the power of 12 times 40 is 480, so I'm just going to put that in. Some of your calculators, you got to hit an arrow to get out of the power, out of the exponent. Minus 1 close parentheses, divided by, open parentheses, 0.08 divided by 12, close and close. So you would have, just putting away $15 a month for 40 years, you'd have $52,365. $15 a month is $50,000. Which, you know, $50,000 is only probably about what would get you through a year, but it's a start. You know, and the nice thing about this is if you double this amount, it doubles that amount. So you take that, if you do it times 10, if you're doing 150 a month, this would be 500,000. Now that's also at 8%, which is kind of a conservative rate. That interest rate goes from 8% up to 10%, and it significantly changes it. The interest rate is not 10%, but the investment rate is. And there's a big difference between, and I used interest there and I shouldn't have. There's a big difference between interest rate and investment rate. Investment rate means you're investing in the stock market and stuff like that. You go into a bank, you're not going to get above 2% on hardly anything. And that is the problem, is it's not going to be a guaranteed 8% return. It's going to be, it might be 8% one year, 2% the next, 14% the next. They can be, but that's where you talk to an investment planner, because they'll go through the usual strategy. Is when you're young, you go a little bit riskier, because when you're young, if you're looking to invest your money for 5 years, you want to be a little conservative because you want to make sure that money's there in 5 years. If you've got 40 years, well, if the stock market craps out, there's time for it to recover. And usually it's during that recovery where you make your big money. So you've got time to wait for it to recover. Now, once you get closer to retirement, they're probably going to switch it out of the stock market into safer stuff that gets lower returns. Just to let you guys off the hook, if this is not going to be a question on your test, it would be an extra credit question, just so you know. Now, the other one is, let's say you have a loan and you're paying off a loan. And you want to figure what your payment would be on that loan. This could also be thought of as, let's say you have that $50,000 put away and you want to draw out every month. You want to know how much you could draw out. It would be the same formula. So your payment is going to equal your balance, your principal. Wow, I can't spell today. Principal times, still 3 parentheses, your rate, 1 plus your rate divided by the number of periods, the power of n times t minus 1. This still looks pretty familiar. Here's where it starts to change. It's still r divided by n, but then times 1 plus r divided by n to the power of nt again. So let's talk about that truck. Let's say you buy a $50,000 truck. And you're going to have to pay, if you have good credit, you can get 4% interest. I do know of people that are paying as high as 12% interest on their cars right now. And let's say you're going to do it over 6 years. I can remember when 5 years was the absolute max they would go on a car loan. I have seen some of these done up to 8 years now just because the payments are too high. To me, that's a big risk because you're assuming that vehicle's still going to be running in 8 years. This should be divided here, not times, by the way. That makes a big difference. It should be divided. Yep. So we've got 1 plus 4% is 0.04. You're making payments monthly, so it's going to be divided by 12. So 12 times 6 to get your periods, minus 1, divided by 0.04 divided by 12 times 1 plus 0.04 divided by 12 to the power of 12 times 6, and close our parentheses. So let's find this payment here. 50,000 divided by 123, 1 plus 0.04 divided by 12. close parentheses, to the power 12 times 6 is 72. Minus 1, close, divided by, open, 0.04 divided by 12, times 1 plus 0.04 divided by 12. Power of 12 times 6 is still 72. Close and close. $782.26 a month. That is a pretty stiff car payment. Now you could stretch that out over 7 or 8 years instead of 6, which would reduce that. But now here's the key. How much are you really paying for that truck then? Well, $782.26 times 72 payments. You're really paying $56,322. So it's costing you $6,300 to finance that truck over time. Go out of what mode? Oh yeah, you use the right arrow, actually gets it out of the powers. There you go. Okay, now yesterday I had given you page 97, 1 through 13. There should now be more problems there that make sense after looking at this. Again, the payment calculation and the annuity balance calculation will not be on the test. They would be extra credit questions. I'm going to move your test from tomorrow back to Tuesday because I didn't get to the powers and root stuff today. So you guys get the weekend, you get tomorrow, we'll have class tomorrow to finish up the unit. The test will be Tuesday. You bet. Gives you the weekend to study. That's my way of saying I want your weekend too.